for the victims of COVID-19 and the healthcare workers that treat our fellow citizens during this crisis. I would again I'd like Ms. Avian Turner to read our mission statement, please. Avian?
Yes, good morning. The mission of the Louisiana State Board of Medical Examiners is to protect and improve the health, safety, and welfare of the citizens of Louisiana through licensing, regulation, research, and discipline of physicians and allied health professionals in a manner that protects the rights and privileges of the licensees.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I would like any public comments to be emailed to publiccomments@lsbme.la.gov. Again, public comment at lsbme.la.gov. I remind all of our staff and board members that your mics may be muted, and to raise your hand function is also to be recognized. I also would ask that once you are recognized, please state your name before speaking. I also advise that if you mute your mic yourself, we may not be able to unmute you. You may notice some changes to the executive session information. These changes will protect the due process rights of the affected practitioners. Additionally, we now must ask that any additions to the executive session agenda be made now in the public session before we go into executive session. We will no longer be able to make additions to the executive session agenda after the close of the public session. And I'm getting a call. Hold on 1 second. Excuse me. Hello? Who's this, babe? Oh, Jim, I told them, babe. I told them. We're trying to get you in. All right. That was Dr. Taylor. I know it's him because there's no ID. I'd like to introduce some members of the Attorney General staff that will be assisting us today: Ms. Patricia Wilton, Ms. Lauren Sutterth, and Ms. Angelique Friel. We continue to be grateful for the help that they're giving us at this time. Today, we want to take 2 months of business and executive session with its disciplinary actions. We also have a hearing scheduled for this afternoon that will likely go until tomorrow. And I'm told that we do have a quorum of 6 members that will participate. The first item on the agenda is approval of the minutes. And I believe we have some potential corrections to be made. And I will open up the floor for those corrections at this time. But may I have a motion to accept, and then we'll go ahead and make the clarifications.
So moved, Weather.
In a second?
Second, O'Neill.
Okay, and I think there's some corrections to the minutes.
Hi, Dr. Clark. This is Terry Thomas.
Dr. Thomas, you recognize?
If I could, so the corrections, I didn't want to take up too much time, but if I could, maybe
please take all the time you need.
It's too much.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. How would you like to handle this, Dr. Thomas?
Maybe if I could take a look at the minutes before the meetings, because a lot of it is just clerical things. It's not.
Okay. Would you want to have a motion to defer these minutes until you've had time to correct them or make some suggested corrections?
Yes, please.
Okay. So we have a substitute motion to defer the minutes until the next board meeting after our Secretary Treasurer's had time to review them. Are there any other motions on the floor? Do I have a second?
Second, Horton.
Dr. Horton seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Okay. I think that, do we need to call the roll on that, Dr. Talata? I think it's unanimous. Hello?
He's muted. He's muted.
Why don't we go ahead, Dr. Collada?
Unmute.
Okay, I think I'm unmuted now. You should, if there's no abstentions, you do not have to have a, you should ask for any abstentions. If there are no abstentions, you do not have to have a voice
Are there
vote.
any abstentions or any negative votes? Seeing none, it's by acclamation. It's all yes. So what we'll do with the further minutes into the next meeting. I've had
Mr.
after,
President? If we could ask Dr. Thomas if she would like to send us a red line version, we will correct it. If she would rather work directly with Jacinta, we can do it. Just tell us how she wants to handle the problem.
Well, the board will need to see that at the next meeting as well. We need to see the corrections. Okay.
Right.
Okay. Some housekeeping issues this morning at the board. Again, will give me some privilege. I'd like to move the financial report up next. Our COO has unfortunately something that she has to handle, and she later this morning, this afternoon. So if there are no objections, I would like to move that up. And then again, I'd like to also add something to the agenda in the executive session. If there's no, hopefully it won't be controversial. I would like to add the compliance officer and make it item 5.1. In other words, I had expected that to be in the agenda and it wasn't. And so we'd like to hear from our compliance officer at every meeting. I'd like to add that and make it item 5.1. Is there any objection to my may I have a motion? I can't make one to add that to the agenda. And if is there any issues moving that financial report up, please speak to that.
Sports so moved to make any changes to the agenda.
Do I have a second?
Horton.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and any dissenting? No, any dissension? Seeing none, approved. Ms. Denise, are you ready to present your financial report?
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Sure, I can do that. Danny was actually presenting, so I'm not sure if he's on the line or not. Can you tell, Alan? Okay, I'll go ahead.
All right, go ahead.
I think the first page is the bank account balances through the month of July.
I'm sorry, this is Dr. Thomas. Would it be helpful if we could have the financial report on the screen?
I think it starts on page 84 of the agenda.
If Mr. Allen would give me a co-host privilege, I will put it on the screen.
We'll just take a little break until we get that done. I'm trying to work with Dr. As an aside, I'm trying to get Dr. Taylor on.
Okay.
He's so we're still having some difficulties. Alan, can you help me with that too? I know you're trying.
Okay, let's see.
Page 80, Van?
I'm going there right now. So
I think it's 84 is the cash balance.
84, okay.
is this where you want to start, Denise?
Yes, sir.
Okay, please go forth.
Okay, well, this is just the bank account balances of all of our accounts through the month of July. Any questions?
Nope.
Okay, the next page is PHP and CME collections, also through the month of July. I think that's on 85, Dr. Collada. These collections run about the same each month. PHP, it just kind of depends on how many doctors renew that month. But that's just kind of normal numbers. The next page is the income statement through July, multi-year for LSBME. Now, the difference in legal costs, we did finally receive approval to pay Adams and Reese, but I think we just paid that this month. So those won't show up on the report until we report through September. But
Okay.
everything else really is kind of the same. We've got some of our building costs are in there. You won't see all of the building costs for the windows and everything because those are fixed assets. And so those are reported differently, but we have paid, I want to say, between 60 and 70% of the building costs. What they do is they do a certain amount of work and then they bill us. They do another round of work and then they bill us. But you won't see all of those costs until we do our final financial statements, and they would show up under fixed assets, which don't show up on an income statement. Everything else is really kind of steady along with the other years. Any questions on LSBME's income statement?
Any questions from the board?
Yes, hi, this is Dr. Thomas. I'm sorry, I had my hand raised, but I don't. So under the operating costs, there was almost a little over $150,000 increase. What was that for?
Well, the increase from the previous year is probably, we have had a big increase in, we had an increase in our risk management bill. We had an increase in parking since we started parking in the new garage. Plus we have more employees, so that increased our parking. Other than that, everything looks pretty steady because our credit card fees actually went down. I think the biggest increase is we have a small increase in our cleaning service because we have a different cleaning service from last year. The biggest difference though is probably from parking because we're in the new garage versus last year we were parking, our rates were a little cheaper.
So is that something that we expect to keep increasing? And
I mean, if the building we're parking in, if they increase their rates, we'd have to pay the increased rates or find somewhere else to park. We really don't have control over it.
I only asked Denise because what operating margin do we usually like to stay in? Because it looks like when you look at the previous years, our operating margin is getting tighter and tighter. And this year, our travel costs have gone way down since we're not having to, go to New Orleans. But that's going to change at some point. So I just worry, if that if that cost continues to increase and we don't have any wiggle room anywhere else.
I mean, comparing this year to last year, we have a lot more employees than the past 3 years. That's one thing. We're matching deferred comp for employees. That's an increase. Our group insurance increases almost every year. It's going to increase again for next year. Those are kind of costs we don't really have any control over. When I do the budget, I typically assume a 3 to 4% increase in everything. We average about 3% increase in pay raises. But you know, we've also hired a lot more people than say back to 2017. We have a lot more people working here than before. So that's going to increase your salaries, your benefits, your parking, things like that.
Do we need to make other arrangements for parking, or is there something, I guess, that,
I mean, we look into parking every year. We just moved into this new building with less than a year ago, I think. But at one point, we were looking to actually buy our own parking garage, but we couldn't find one available for sale. But even though what you're looking at is you're comparing us to 2019, but what we have spent so far, we're still under budget. So we do a budget each year and we try to stay under or within that budget. So when you're comparing year to year, I mean, I understand what you're saying about the costs going up, but at the same time, we're still operating under what we budgeted. So we're still doing what we're supposed to be doing.
okay.
Oh, just some more housekeeping. Any other questions on the budget? Are you on this item? Okay, Ms. Denise?
Okay, the next report is the income statement for clinical lab. And clinical lab kind of looks the same year after year. Most of clinical lab's revenue is received like in the months of November and December because all their licenses are due December 31st. And clinical, what you see are basically directly billed items for clinical lab. At the end of the year, I actually do an allocation where we allocate costs to clinical lab, say for utilities or any other thing that they're using within LSBME's operations. I do an allocation, and so those costs
Would you set up Dr. Van too as a
till the
co-host
end of the year.
also?
So what you're looking at is
That's
basically
okay, no
all
problem. I
you're
know
going
you're
to see
busy.
month after month
You
until
know
the
what we
end
need
of
to
the
do?
year.
We probably need to bring Tracy on in.
Van, you need to mute your mic, brother, if you're going to speak. I'm sorry, Denise.
Any
Repeat that.
questions on clinical lab?
Hearing none? Continue if you wish. Are you finished?
This was
Or you
the
like to
last-
make any
this was the
comments?
last page, actually.
Okay. All right, Denise. Well, thank you very much. Any
All right,
comments?
thanks for moving me up on the agenda. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Going back to the original agenda in order. Dr. Galata, you have some follow-up action items for us this morning. And I think we have a couple new board members on too. I think Dr. Taylor is on now, and so is Ms. Sport, I believe.
Yeah, just
So
let me bring us back to where we need to be. I'm sorry for it takes so long.
No.
And Dr. Horton or Dr. Johnson have their hand up. Dr. Clark.
Okay, go ahead. Dr. Horton, Dr. Johnson?
I'm sorry, mine is minor, I suppose, but when we began the meeting and we addressed the minutes of the July meeting, did we do the same thing for the August 5th meeting minutes? Are we deferring those as well?
In general, I said minutes, but I was not specific. If you want to go back and revisit that motion, I assume they were the minutes in both meetings, but I don't, if we want to go back and revisit, we can clarify the motion if you wish.
I assumed it was all, I just had that sticking out here and didn't know whether.
Yeah, I think it's for both. Is that correct, Dr. Thomas?
Yes, that is correct.
Thank you very much.
Mr. President,
Uh-huh.
I think I have on the screen the first response
Okay,
that we
go
need to
ahead.
consider. And this is a telemedicine prescribing requirement. And basically our response to this is, it's about prescribing controlled substances via telemedicine. And we talked about the examination that's required. And the issue at the inpatient, the patient has to be established in person. And of course, we have exceptions, and we've outlined those for the requester. And this is in order with what we have in our rules, and I would move that we adopt this and send it to the appropriate person.
Any comments from the board?
I'll second that.
Okay, well, what I may do, Kim, is I may go through some of these, and I guess we could do one by one if we want to. Go ahead. I'll entertain your motion, Ms. Ford. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well,
We'll
it
just-
puts it on the table for discussions.
Oh, okay. Have a second, please.
Second, Horton.
Dr. Horton, and now we have any discussion? Any comments? Hearing none. All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
All against, say no. Hearing no no's, your draft is approved. Next, please.
Okay, 1 second, Mr. President. This was the request, followed it, as you might say, remember from reading. Okay. This is a request about retention of medical records upon departure from a group or practice. And here we advise the issue based upon our 2008 statement, maintaining medical records. And it is in order with the AMA Code of Ethics as well. And so we basically, in this area, tell them that if a physician leaves a practice or group, it's the duty of the departing physician, with the assistance of physicians remaining in the physician's former practice group, to alert the patients that such records are available and include how long they will be available. And it talks about what happens if physicians don't comply. And it talks about our board rules address them for non-compliance. It is my recommendation that the board approve this, and we will send it on to Dr. Clayton.
Do I have a motion to approve?
Weather,
This
so
is
moved.
Horton, I move to
Dr.
approve.
Weather? Okay, Dr. Weather, Dr. Horton, second. Any discussion?
I do. I'm sorry. I have my hand raised.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. I'm gonna have
That's
to get
okay.
someone to help me with that. Maybe
Yeah,
Alan
I'm
can
gonna
help.
do it.
Alan, please.
That's right.
Alan, please help me with that when a board member wants to speak. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
I was just waiting for
Sorry,
everybody.
Dr. Thomas. I know you've been hands have been busy right now, Alan, getting everybody on. I know.
Yeah, that's
Go
okay. So my only question is, it sounds like from Dr. Caton's letter that the office maybe did not do their duty in terms of releasing those records. Is there something that needs to be done with that?
Well, in the letter, it talks about this, that physicians who fail to comply with the above notification and impede a departing physician from required notification by
Right.
refusing to provide a list. So it says what we can do, but if we don't get a complaint from Dr. Clayton, we can't do anything. This was a request on how it should be handled. It was not a complaint.
Got it.
Yeah, I think it gives him a roadmap. I think it gives him a roadmap, whatever it's up. Okay, go
Dr.
ahead.
Valentine has a hand raised, Mr. President.
Go ahead.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning.
This is one of those requests that we seem to get several times a year. Maybe it may be good to include this, just some type of guidance on this in our newsletter or something like that, just as a way to kind of give providers some information since we're answering this question several times a year.
I think it's a great idea, and maybe even post it as an advisory opinion on our website. You're right. I think there's a lot of transition these days, and I think that's an excellent suggestion, Dr. Valentine.
Mr. President, we have an advisory opinion that dates to 2008. It has not changed. It's presently there. I think if we want to put in our newsletter to approach the 2008 news advisory opinion, we can do that. And if you want to reconsider, I can have Ms. Mary and myself go over those things and look.
Since it's been, 12 years, probably a good idea to take a look at it.
Yeah, let's go ahead and take a look at it, and we're happy to do that. But we'll put the current letter information in the newsletter, and then we'll go ahead and talk about revising the 2008 advisory opinion.
Okay, sounds great.
Dr.
So any other questions?
Dr. Taylor has his hand up.
Comments? Dr. Taylor.
Yes, and in his letter, he kind of asked if the recommended course of action is to actually file a board action. My understanding then what you're saying is there's nothing else that we can do about this particular issue unless there is a complaint on file. Is that correct?
That is the rules of the board. We have to have complaints. We cannot initiate them except on special situations. And if you want to make this a special situation, the board would have to move to initiate the investigation on its own. And I think that probably is something that would best be handled in executive session if you choose to do so. But I'll let our attorneys address that.
Be something that
No, I think the advice you've given him is fine.
Mary, do you have a comment?
required.
Ms. Payton, did you wanted to make a comment? Our counsel?
Can you?
You're
Kind of
breaking up.
distorted. You started a little. Okay, well, I don't think we can get Mary.
Ms. Wilton, are you able to comment?
Can you hear me now?
Okay, there she is.
I was just saying, I think, if you wanted to add it to the executive agenda, it takes a vote now, and then thereafter, it's something that we would handle in executive agenda if you would add that.
Does anyone is there a motion to entertain this? I hear no motion. Okay. So a motion to approve the draft response for the retention of medical records has been given. We have a second. And so we need a vote. All in favor? Aye. All against? Say no. Hearing none, the draft passes. Dr. Collada, you have the floor again.
Okay, let me scroll down so y'all can see the next item. And I will scroll past the letter from Dr. Clayton. And this is from Dr. Khan. And let me get to the right beginning. Dr. Khan is concerned about legally issued physician's emergency certificates or coroner's emergency certificates and asked that we address this. And we have described what is required for an emergency certificate and what is any physician licensed or permitted by Louisiana State Board, physician assistant when acting in accordance with respective clinical practice guidelines, psychiatric mental health nurse practitioner, or other nurse practitioner with collaborative practice agreement receives verbal approval can issue these certificates. This is the law. I think he is quite concerned that people other than MDs are doing this. And unfortunately, the law allows that. It's not something that the board can address. And maybe if our two psychiatrists want to weigh in on this, it might also be helpful to have them explain it as well. And I think that here we are. The big thing I think we need to say is that when it's failure to conduct an examination prior to the execution will be evidence of gross negligence, but that's all we can really say. And I think it's important to understand that we have laws that exceed the authority of the Board of Medical Examiners in this regard. So again, I think it's appropriate to respond in this manner, but I'd love to hear Dr. O'Neill or Dr. Horton comment on this.
Is there a motion to first to approve the draft?
Yes, so that's my recommendation.
Okay, is there a motion on the floor? To approve
Support
the
the
draft?
motion to approve.
Ms. Sports, second, Dr. Weather. In discussion? Any hands up?
No hands up.
Hearing no discussion, all in favor, please say.
Wait.
Wait.
I had trouble getting in. I'm sorry. This is O'Neill.
Oh, okay,
By the way,
go
this
ahead.
is specific. It really depends on parish. He's specifically talking about East Baton Rouge. Yeah, the one thing that, Van, if you look at the actual law, you have to include psychologists as people that are able to do PECs. They added that about 5-6 years ago. Yeah, I mean, personally, I have issues with this, but I know from a legal standpoint, it's been legislated. So I'll keep my opinions to myself. I will point out, very interestingly, the coroners around the state don't have to be physicians or any medical person. A lot of them are lawyers and ex-sheriffs in other small, very rural parishes in Louisiana.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for that. Dr. Horton, I know you have some expertise as well. Would you like to comment?
You know, it has changed in the last few years so that other people were added for PAs and nurse practitioners. There's concern about it being included in their collaborative practice agreement if they're going to be doing that. And their supervisors be aware, but there's not an area of the form for that to be documented that their supervisor agreed. So, you know, we can't really go in and form that change. The other thing is that the psychologist had been approved to do PECs. I'm not aware that they've ever been approved to do CECs yet. And that, you know, I think generally it changes from parish to parish because the coroners get to decide who they appoint as deputy coroners to do the CECs. You know, so that's the second step beyond the initial PEC. Some places seem to be more easily agreeing with a PEC when they do coroner certificates. But it varies based on the setting across the state. So the coroners have a lot of influence in that. And that's an elected office.
Okay, well, thank you so much. Any other comments?
Thomas has her hand raised.
Dr. Thomas?
Yep.
Yeah, so one of the questions that the physician posed in his letter was about statistics. So I wanted to know, do we have a way of drilling down into those numbers? He specifically asked about stats between CECs that are not certified. I don't know if there's a way for us to gather that information. He has a valid point about that.
And Dr. Thomas, I would comment that we do not keep statistics on that at all. We license the physicians and the PAs. We have no control over the other people who can issue these certificates. And we do not regulate the work of the coroner in his official capacity. So for example, if somebody were to file a complaint about a coroner issuing a commitment paper and somebody thought it was not done properly. It's not jurisdictional for us, and if Dr. Cresswell wants to weigh in, he can weigh in on this as well. But the official business of the coroner is not regulated by the Board of Medical Examiners. So we have no statistics on this at all.
Dr. Cresswell, you recognize?
Yeah, I would agree 100% with Dr. Collado. We do not have jurisdiction over the coroner's office, and yeah, essentially what he said is correct. We do not keep data on that.
So should we, so since Dr. Khan specifically asked about that in his letter, should we have something in our response addressing that? Should we say something to the effect of, while that is a valid point, or we don't even have to agree with him, or we can just say, refer him, we do not have jurisdiction in this area. You're welcome to seek answers elsewhere, something to that effect.
I believe it is in the letter.
It
Dr.
is.
Dr. Collado, would you want to comment on that?
I believe it addresses it in the letter. It may not be a specific comment, but it basically talks about where you can get practice guidelines. It talks about the fact that the board, these actual examination of persons and nurse practitioners may be conducted by telemedicine. It basically says that this is so wide diverse, we don't really have a way of saying anything, obtaining these statistics, and we don't have jurisdiction over the coroners. And so I'm not sure if you want to make a specific statement, we can add it in and bring it back to you next month, or we can leave it as it is and send it out.
My hand's up.
Go ahead,
Yeah,
Ken.
Dr. Ms. Bullard and Dr. Valentine have their hand up.
Okay,
I
go
just
ahead.
think, wouldn't it be easier just to copy the Coroners Association on this letter? And since we don't have jurisdiction over them, just copy them on this letter and ask, get them involved.
Happy to do so if that's the will of the board.
Okay. Is that a motion, I guess, Ms.?
I'll make it a motion to copy
Okay.
the Coroners Association.
And second?
Second, Thomas.
Yeah, Dr. Thomas, second. Any discussion on that?
Dr. Valentine has her hand up.
I don't know that she's on this topic, though. If it is,
Yes, it is on the topic.
It's speaking to
Yeah.
moving for the letter going over to the Coroner Association.
Well,
It's speaking to Ms. Sports motion. I just want to make sure. I know we get confused about some of these things, but you're free to speak, Dr. Valentine.
Sure. Okay. Well, I was just going to bring up, as we were talking about this, since we do have jurisdiction over the physician assistants, he's almost suggesting that they are not practicing medicine the way that they should. Because I guess the biggest concern that was just brought up, and of course, we have no evidence to support it. This is what claiming is that they aren't doing any mental examinations on the patient. So I guess my thought is, and I completely support what Ms. Ford said about sending this and CCing the Coroners Association, because I think that looping everyone in is going to be important. But also just what we do have jurisdiction over is how the physician assistants are practicing.
So I guess that would require a complaint, again, for us to look into those matters.
Dr. Clark.
Yes. Excuse me?
I don't want to interrupt Dr. Valentine.
Well, what I was saying was, I think is this letter, I would take it as this is a complaint that he's raising, is the fact that he has this concern about the practice. I mean, mental health is such a huge issue everywhere, and we definitely need more support in our state. But just maybe this letter is his complaint about how physician assistants are practicing.
So your response is it doesn't address that, is what you're basically saying. Just let it, just in your opinion. Is that, am
Well,
I?
I think that I think that it would warrant some type of investigation as to if physician assistants are practicing the way that they should practice. You know, I think that if there's a concern about the care, in that, you know, and of course our psychiatrists could weigh in and everybody else. But if there's a concern about the care that they're receiving, then it seems like that's a complaint that should be investigated. It may be warranted, just like it may not be, but I think that it's something that he's bringing to our attention about our licensees and how they may be treating Louisianians.
We have multiple hands raised. Dr. Taylor was first.
Dr. Taylor.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks to Dr. Valentine for clarifying that, because I was thinking the same thing. It seems there's two questions. I think his first concern and his frustration is that non-physicians are allowed to do this in the first place, which we cannot change. But those people who are under jurisdiction, who are doing it in a way that does not meet the standard of care, I do think that would be something that would have to be investigated on an individual basis. I mean, from a practitioner standpoint, and if if he had concerns, let's say that, you know, PECs were being done in a punitive manner, or they were being ignored when because of economic circumstances, when the patient really should be kept and they're not, for reasons other than their actual mental status. So I think those questions are separate from the fact that they're allowed to do it in the first place. We can't do anything about the first one, but I do think that if there are indications that a person who is doing it is not doing so correctly, that's a place where I think we can investigate.
Okay.
Is next with her hand raised, Dr. Horton, then Ms. Payton, and then Dr. Cresswell.
Okay. Go ahead, Dr. Horton.
You know, I see a problem in his communication in that he's generalizing this behavior by various professionals. And I think it would be good to direct him that if he has a complaint or a concern about the professional activity of an individual, he should report that so that the board can follow up on it. But to say PAs are doing this, nurse practitioners are doing this for inappropriate reasons, then that's generalizing things about a huge group of people. And how can we go and investigate that? Are we going to go to 3 hospitals in each parish and look at everybody that's writing a PEC and what they're doing? That's unreasonable.
I absolutely agree with you, Dr. Horton. That maybe that's what we do is ask him if he has particular cases he's concerned with to please let us know, so that particular situation could be investigated. You're right. This is, I mean, PAs. That is a group of licensees, and if there's something in particular he's concerned with, I think that's an excellent point.
Okay, go ahead. Who's the next, please?
Would be Ms.
Cresswell.
Dr. Cresswell. Larry, you recognize.
Actually, Dr. Horton just answered or stated exactly what I was going to say. Because this is a large group of people, we could ask this physician if he had any particular licensees whom he wanted us to investigate, and we could gladly look into the situation. But Dr. Horton stated my concerns perfectly.
Mr. President,
yes.
Do you want to approve it separately and get it out before the next meeting?
Well, we have 2 motions. I think we have a motion from Ms. Sport to send this letter over to the Coroners Association that we still haven't voted on. That's the next vote. And then we have the vote on the draft itself. I think we can still have the vote on the draft itself. I don't hear anything controversial about it other than I think I'd like to have a vote on the draft, unless I hear some folks who don't want to. I think I'm hearing a consensus that the drafted letter is probably adequate, but there needs to probably be some other things communicated to this physician. That's where I'm coming from on this. Anyone have,
my hand
go
is-
ahead.
Is
Go
raised.
ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So I think that this draft, if we could add that language, then as far as
What
if there's
language is
someone-
that, Dr. Valentine? I hate to interrupt, but what
The
is, what language?
along with what Dr. Horton mentioned, the language that if there was a specific licensee or a particular situation that was of concern,
Okay,
to
sounds good.
please, make that
Amendment?
make that amendment to this letter, and then I think that would be
And
appropriate.
then we can approve it, and that'd be great. Okay, any other questions or comments?
Mr. President,
Yes.
do you want to have this amendment lay over till the next full meeting, or do you want to approve it after we do it and send it out? Because this has already been delayed 3 months.
I think what I like to do is ask the board. And so what we're going to do first is vote on the amendment, to vote on the motion of Ms. Sport to send this to the coroner as a motion, and we have a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any dissension, say no. Okay, thank you. So that's approved. Now we have a motion and a second on this draft. I believe that Dr. Valentine has offered an amendment, basically stating that if anyone should have concerns in regard to practitioners in the way they're handling these PECs and CECs, that they should report those or incidents or file a complaint with the board or something to that matter. I kind of just messed up your motion, Dr. Valentine, or your amendment, but is that pretty much what you would like to say?
Yes, something along those lines I think is absolutely appropriate.
Okay.
We will draft them and have them back at the next meeting, Mr. President.
Okay, why don't we do that? And would the board approve the draft with that friendly amendment added? Is there
I think
consensus?
we're all- This is O'Neill. I would suggest that we specify the types of licensees that the board is in charge of. So we don't need, he doesn't need
Okay.
nurse practitioners. And nurse
All right,
practitioners
well.
are the majority of people who do these.
All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and ask that we bring this back. We're going to defer a vote on this until next month, Dr. Collada, until we can get a little more input from the board members and clean this up a little bit, okay?
Yes,
We
sir. We will
spent
take
enough
care of it.
time on this already. The next is the physician's assistants and removal IAPBs draft response.
All right, this has been on the agenda previously, and you asked us to get the input from the PA's advisory committee. And
Correct.
PA advisory committee reviewed the recommendation of the original letter, and they are in 100% agreement with it. And so the PAs support this completely as it was written. And I recommend at this time, since it has met the requirement to go back to the PAs and they approve it, that we send this response to Ms. Degatier.
Okay, you're asking for a motion to approve.
Please.
Is there a motion?
Sport moves.
Ms. Sport has moved. Second was who?
O'Neill.
Dr. O'Neill has seconded. Any questions or discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All in dissension, say no. Hearing none, motion passes. Next draft is the oxygen management response.
And there is attached some OT minutes. This is in response to the direct question to the OT advisory committee. And this is the proper response based upon their suggestion. And I ask that you have a motion to approve this response.
Do I have a motion from the floor?
This is the oxygen issue?
Oxygen
Yes.
therapy by the OTs. And the
Um,
OTs feel this is within their scope of training, and they also should have continuing education to do so.
Okay, I move to approve.
Do I have a second?
Weather, second.
Dr. Weather, thank you. Any discussion? Any hands up?
Yes, sir.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
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 All in dissension, say no. The draft passes. All right, thank you, Dr. Collada. The next item on the agenda is the LLA clarification request, audit recommendation, page 44. This is kind of something that's been hanging in for a while. I had a request from a board member. I was sent a letter by Ms. Sport in June 28, 2020, with some concerns over how we were approaching some of our reviews in regard to investigative matters. And there was basically some different, like I say, different views of how this should be addressed. So I thought the best way to solve the problem was actually to go and speak to the LLA directly. And they sent us back an email basically clarifying their position on what we should be doing. And Ms. Wilton, if you don't mind stepping in because you were on this call, could you kind of work the board through this issue, kind of help us clarify what they want us to do, please?
Certainly. The auditor had made the original findings that Dr. Cresswell and his team and the board prepared a comprehensive response to, and put into place some things that the auditor, if not expressly, certainly tacitly approved as it was an interactive process, I'm understanding, and Dr. Cresswell can correct me if I'm wrong. It was an interactive process between the board and the auditor with respect to what a response would be. Since that time, a question arose as to whether the concept of an intermediate arm's length review of the recommendations had been implemented. And the concern was, or the question was, that although we have compliance counsel who is responsible for ensuring due process for everyone who interacts with the board through the investigations division, that was not a separate step, if you will, because of the interrelationship between the compliance counsel and the investigations department, in the sense that the compliance counsel is an observer of each of the different interactions with persons who are involved with investigations. Part of her job description is to interact with those or be involved and attend those types of meetings and so forth. So clarification was given by the auditor, who indicated that we should look to models in different states to determine whether an arm's length objective review of some sort would take place as an interim or intermediate step between the Division of Investigations recommendations and the ultimate vote by the board. And so that's where we are in the process in terms of coming up with the best way to handle that.
And we have really not moved forward on any type of plan of action or an action plan on this matter. I would ask the board to give me the grace to try to work with Ms. Wilton, Dr. Cresswell, and Dr. Collada to come up with maybe some potential ideas to present to the board and at this point. And I'm going to open it up for discussion because I'm sure there's some great thoughts on this matter. But I would appreciate giving me the courtesy to do that. And maybe by the first of the year or so, we could have something to present to the board. And maybe even I could even ask a couple board members to help me out within avoiding any issues with the sunshine laws that we have to work under. Who's asked to speak?
Hands up by Dr. Taylor and then Dr. Cresswell.
All right, Dr. Taylor.
Yes, I'm going to take this opportunity to once again plug my continuing efforts to make us look more like the Attorney Disciplinary Board. I think this is an opportunity for us to perhaps set up reading committees, which could either be a subset of the board that would not then take place, that would not then take part in the trial, or other physicians whom we could bring in to set as a reading committee to review the case independently and then make an assessment of the charges. Again, the benefit of this mechanism, it's already set up and it's already being done in Louisiana with the people who run the courthouses. If it's good enough for them, I think it should be good enough for us. So I would encourage you, and I will assist you in any way you require in moving towards moving our procedures more closely to theirs.
Dr. Cresswell? Dr. Cresswell?
Yep, nope, I'm here. The one thing that I was going to say is that I'm willing to work with the board in any way you guys would like to restructure any recommendations that come through the investigations department. Currently, as I stated, one of the things that we do is we take a look at precedents, and we have a 20-year history of all public decisions that have been made by the board, broken down by violations of the Medical Practice Act. And we use this to guide what our recommendations are when we make recommendations to the board. If the board would like, I can provide that to each board member, and so that when you review my recommendations, you guys can also see what the precedence in history has been with the LSBME for that particular violation, and how I came to my recommendation, if that would assist you in determining whether or not you feel my recommendation is appropriate. But ultimately, it's the board's decision. And any way that you guys want to go, I'm happy to assist.
Thank you so much, Larry. I think you're going to be very incremental in trying to get this worked through. I just want to be compliant with the LLA, and I appreciate your help as always, working with us. Go ahead.
Dr. Valentine has her hand up.
Dr. Valentine.
Yes, I think that this is a great idea. Anything that helps make sure that we are everyone, all of our licensees with the equity. So I think that anything that can ensure that what has happened before, if appropriate, where we have some type of matrix that we formed to look at that. I think we've been working on it for the past few years now. So anything that I can do, I would like to participate as well with that. And if you need a motion to go forward with that, I'd like to make it.
You may. If there's any,
Right.
if there are not any other questions or board members like to say anything, I would like to entertain a motion from Dr.
No other
Valentine.
hands raised, Mr. President.
I'll
Okay,
second.
can we hold on that?
Or-
Can we? Okay, well, we're going to go ahead. We have a motion and a second. So now we can have discussion. So let's go ahead and bring in the other members. Who's like to speak, please?
I'd like to speak. If I
Okay,
can.
Ms. Ford, go ahead.
I shared with Dr. Valentine, and I think Dr. Cresswell, Dr. Collada, and yourself, and perhaps Dr. Taylor, when I noticed that we might not be in compliance with the recommendations of the LLA. And there was a form that was being used either by Virginia or Arizona
I think it was
I
Virginia.
can't remember which
Yeah.
one, but it provided a great checklist.
Yeah.
And that might be good. That might be good enough to help us with the intermediate level of review from the investigative staff to the board. So I just wanted to say I would hope that form might become part of that intermediate level of review. That's all.
Okay. Thank you for that comment.
Okay.
Any other comments from the board or on this topic on the motion?
Dr. Cresswell has his hand up.
I just wanted to say one other thing, Dr. Taylor. I actually have been in contact with Platzmeyer as well, and you were saying how the Attorney Review Board does this. I'm happy to work with him. I've spoken with him as well, and can meet with him for other ways that we can make this very similar. In addition to Platzmeyer, I'm friends with the person who runs the judicial review as well for the Bar Association. And they're all very similar, but we can work together if the board wishes to have some more ideas, and I can bring that back to you guys as well.
I think Dr. Valentine's motion is very appropriate that we start the working group or work of ideas and move forward to come to some type of a plan that the board can review and see if we want to move forward on. We may take a couple shots at it, but we're going to get it right, and also be sure that LLA is in on it. But I appreciate everyone's willingness to work together on this. And so thank you. So we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All against, say no. Hearing none, Dr. Valentine's motions passes. So Dr. Valentine, we definitely will be, I will be calling you for sure, since you've offered your help in maybe getting this. And I'll work with Ms. Wilton too, because we have to be very cautious of the sunshine issues. And so we'll have to work together to be sure we can do this together. So thank you again. Next is rulings and advisory opinions. Dr. Collada. Dr. Collada?
Yes, sir.
Rulings and advisory opinions, mid-levels. Can you hear me?
Dr. Collada, you muted again.
Have this ready. I apologize. I was admitting some people into the meeting and renaming them.
That's okay.
We have
it is a lot going on behind the scenes, I promise. Yeah, so you're up. Rulings and advisory opinions.
To help manage all of this technology. But the first one is the chronic pain management. And this arose out of an initial request by a physician that was a response to the physician at the request of Dr. Cresswell. And then we decided at the last meeting to turn this into an advisory committee meeting, advisory opinion rather. And this advisory opinion is there for you to review. And if you are comfortable with it, we will publish it as an advisory an advisory opinion to the board and put it on our website.
So I think we just need a motion. I think Dr. Cresswell and Dr. Collada both feel that this would be very helpful to the public to have this on our website. So do I have a motion to approve?
So move, Valentine.
Dr. Valentine?
Second, Thomas.
Dr. Thomas, any discussion? Any hands up? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All against, no.
Aye.
Hearing none, No no's. That's approved, Dr. Collada. Next, please, communication and information. Van, did I lose you again?
No, sir, I'm trying to get to the right page. I just didn't-
Okay, that's all right. I have 3 devices in front of me. To try to keep
Congratulations, so do I.
So many devices.
Sorry.
What page is that on? I'm gonna make sure I get to the right page.
I have it on my agenda. It's on 49, but on the, it's probably a little later than that.
Ruling, okay, first, for ruling and advisory committee meeting. Okay, chronic pain management.
About for 50-ish.
Okay, hang on, I'm getting to the right one.
Wait, it's a little bit, it's 52, 53.
This was a request from a Miss Macaluso, who is one of our lay midwives, not nurse midwife, one of our lay midwives that we regulate. And it was actually a 2-part request. It was a request for us to provide information to people about using PPEs. And then there was another request that will be addressed later on in executive session by Dr. Cresswell. But basically, Ms. Macaluso wanted to be sure that we advise providers that adequate PPE is necessary and should be used on all patients that they contact. I will tell you that we have already published that at your request. We sent a letter to the LDH requesting them to do it as well. And so we have this set up and we've done it already.
All right.
My question to you is, I would simply state we could respond to Ms. Macaluso by stating that we have sent a letter to.
Please mute your, Van, may I interrupt you for a second?
Sure.
Please, folks, please mute your mics. Getting a lot of feedback. Thank you. Go ahead, Dr. Collada.
So my suggestion is that, and with regard to her request about viral spread of COVID and the PPE, my suggestion is we respond to Ms. Macaluso by stating that we have addressed this with LDH. We publish it on our website, and that we feel no further action is necessary unless the board wants to direct us to take further action. That's what I would recommend.
I'm going to open this up to the board for discussion. Any hands up, Alan?
Dr. Thomas just raised her hands.
Dr. Thomas?
What are the areas that have been redacted?
Those are the areas that will be addressed in the executive session, because she had multiple requests in the same email, and those have to do with issues of matters of executive and disciplinary and should not be addressed in this open session.
Any other, Dr. Thomas, do you have any comments in regard to the request by Dr. Collada in regard to this information?
No, I do not.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
I was trying
Dr.
to raise my hand on the computer.
Okay, go ahead, Dr. Valentine.
So with this particular request, what is, I guess, what was, Dr. Collada, you were really low for me. And I know the technology is doing, everything that it does. So what you were saying that this was already addressed. We already have this information out about PPE, correct?
That is correct. And we also sent a letter at the order of the president back in, I think it was March, to LDH asking them to address it as well with all providers, and they have as well.
Right.
So my suggestion is simply respond with those facts to Ms. Macaluso on this issue of her multiple request email. The other requests should be addressed in executive session, and Dr. Cresswell should handle those later on today.
Dr. Valentine, would you like to entertain a motion to that effect?
Sure. I would like to move that that we follow Dr. Collada's recommendation on that we've sent out, the letter on our website and all the other avenues made information about COVID available.
Thank you. Do we have a second
Thank
on that
you.
motion?
Weather, second.
Dr. Weather is second. Any discussion, further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All in dissension, say no.
Aye.
Hearing no dissension, motion passes. Thank you to Dr. Valentine, Dr. Collada. Then any other requests, Dr. Or communications that we need to know about, Dr. Collada?
I have recollection, but I'm gonna run down to the bottom to be sure. I don't think we have any more, but I just don't want to make sure I miss anything. Give me a second to scroll down.
Okay.
We have a lengthy set of information that followed that request. No, the next thing is your president's report, Mr. President.
Okay. Well, first I'd like to thank the Attorney General Landry and Senator Jackson for their time and contributions to the board. I'd also like to thank our board itself for the hard work in getting the presidential authority and executive director job description resolutions completed. Both these documents will be on the agenda for review. Probably, maybe in consider November. We may have a meeting in November or December instead of October. I was very happy to be able to go into New Orleans on the 14th, and I was saddened to see how the city is still really kind of quiet. And the hotel was very quiet too. But we had a wonderful meeting with the staff and the managers. And I think I have huge expectations that we're going to be doing some great things in the future. And that we're developing some metrics and dashboards that hopefully this board will see. I know that it's going to take a while for our managers to develop those things, but I'd like to see licensure present data. I'd like to, at a board meeting, of course, Dr. Cresswell's investigations to present data. And we already get data from get a financial report every month, but it'd be nice to just to see what their goals are in each department, and if they're meeting those expectations and meeting their goals. So I think it was a very good meeting. The administrative organization, compliance council job description is pretty much ready to be presented next month, as well as the org chart. As I had mentioned before, I would like Doctors Johnson and Valentine to kind of help me with the compliance job description, knowing that they were really deeply involved in formation of this position. Even though our attorneys have worked very diligently in putting this together, I think their eyes would be essential in making sure we get it right. Administrative, if that's okay. I don't want to, if that's okay with Dr. Johnson and Dr. Valentine.
Absolutely.
I had a discussion regarding administrative hearings with Judges Bagnaris and Everett, as well as Dr. Collada, Dr. Cresswell, trying to figure out what we're going to do. How do we do this with the COVID issues, and maybe even going forward. So I think Dr. Collada is going to have some discussion on that in his executive director report. And as you know, we're blessed to have two experts of psychiatry on our board, Drs. Harden and O'Neill. I had a couple of meetings with them in September, and it's something dear to my heart. It's physicians' health. I think it's dear to all of our hearts, especially physicians' mental health. And we had some ideas that we'd like to discuss and present to the board. And I think, again, that will be presented under Dr. Collada's executive report. So thank you, everyone, for your hard work during these times. And Dr. Collada, you have the floor. Executive Director's report. Dan?
Like he's getting there.
I am trying to scroll down to the beginning of my report. Here
Okay.
we are. So again, we had the PA Advisory Committee and the OT Advisory Committee, and they've been incorporated into our responses. I can tell you that I think our computer systems are ready for this hurricane season. We've had no trouble. In order to eliminate a lot of the technical problems we are having, we are going to send each and every one of you all a laptop that is board owned and would serve you with multiple purposes. This would give you a working camera and computer audio so that we don't have the kind of dropouts and things we're experiencing by a combination of phone and video. And also this would give us very secure methodologies of storing information. So for example, you might be using your corporate laptop or corporate computer right now, and you have the agenda on it and maybe even some information about the hearing. I would urge you to be sure that you remove that, because what's on your corporate computer is also the property of the corporation, and people could get into that. And I think it's important that you remove that after this meeting. But with the new laptops you'll be getting, you'll be able to prevent that from being an issue of security for us. And what we will be doing is you'll be able to have these holding rooms and for everybody, and we'll be able to make sure that we have the best security of the meetings. Additionally, all of the work that you do on that will be protected through the VPN, and we would just, like we have been doing, save about $12,000 a year to make sure we have the ability to get these things in a timely fashion. And those will be done very, very quickly for you all. I will go ahead to the next month's executive director's report. These computers will be required to be set up in our office the first time. And if you are uncomfortable speaking to our people by phone, our IT professionals by phone, to answer some security questions for you, or you'll have to come to the office. If not, we can do it by phone, and we will hand deliver to everybody their laptop that does it by phone. Although obviously those of you that come to the office to do it because you feel uncomfortable sharing that data with our IT professionals, you can take the laptop out as you leave. But those will be required in the future. I think it's the safest way to do all of the things that we've been doing. I would tell you that the scaffolding is now down from all of the brickwork that was done. And we are now doing the windows. All of the windows on the Capdeville side, save for the front corner of the building, are completely installed, I'm told. And if you pass by, you'll notice that they are neat and clean, and they're getting ready to start with my office today. They're actually moving furniture and setting up the false walls, to be removing the windows on all of the corner offices, on all levels. And then they will move across the front of the building. We anticipate that this will proceed as well in a normal fashion. There'll be some people who are displaced, and people have the option of working from home or working in several areas of our conference rooms and in the building. So I will tell you that that will further continue. Some advisory committee meetings are in the agenda. The early minutes of them are there for you to see. And this is the first meeting where we use the cloud share system, and this will be enhanced as we make the distribution of the laptops. We also, as you recall, several months ago approved.
Dr. Collada?
Yes, sir.
Can I interrupt you? We have several complaints from attendees and from the public that they can't hear you.
Okay. Let me see if I can figure this out.
I think you get closer to the mic, maybe.
That's what I'm doing.
All right.
Okay, can you hear me any better?
No.
Okay, I'm sorry, I apologize. As you recall, we sent out a survey on behalf of the Louisiana State Medical Society, and there was some pretty significant data about high numbers. It was about 1,000 responses, and there were about 40 to 60% of the people reported either depression or burnout. And this was very alarming to several of us. The president, myself, and our two psychiatrists on the board met with this issue. We looked around to see what other people were doing. And the only thing that we thought we should do was being done by one other state. We received no other responses from other states about them taking any action. And so my suggestion to you is that what we are trying to set up is work with the LSMS that they set up voluntary virtual support groups, and that we are going to do a voluntary virtual support group for people who are under investigation, but we don't feel we can do those for people who have stress, and then we're going to support the society in doing it. But what we are talking about doing with your approval is setting up a voluntary virtual support group that we pay the psychiatrist to run. And we have about 50 or so people on average, on MDs or DOs in the pilot program for MDs and DOs before we go to other areas of our licensees. And those people would receive this ability to join independent of the investigations department. And it's an opportunity to get away from some of the perceptions about the Physicians Health Foundation, that it's punitive and not supportive. And I think this is a concern that both of our psychiatrists raised. And I think this will give us, at a reasonable cost, an opportunity. This would allow us to, please excuse me, the office phone was ringing. This would allow us to have this help for the people who need it, who are under investigation, as opposed to the people who just have simple burnout or other issues relative to depression, which we hope that the medical society would address. So that's the status of this at this time. And we
Well, Van, I'd like to dig a little, if you don't mind, I'd take this opportunity to dig a little deeper into this, because we've had some very constructive meetings with Dr. O'Neill and Dr. Horton in this, and I'd like them to speak to this. And I want to make this a clarification, and in the words, you did clarify it, but it was kind of foggy, that there is going to, what we're primarily dealing with is our own process. The LSMS, we will support what they do, but we're not going to be directly involved in it unless they ask us for, of course, for our opinion or whatever we can. But we're moving forward. We'd like to move forward on our own initiative through the recommendations of both of our board members, who made some very good suggestions, in developing a structure in which we can help physicians who are having some difficulty. And so I'd like Dr. Horton and Dr. O'Neill to chime in, if they may.
Well, if it's okay with Dr. O'Neill, I'll go ahead and tell you some of my thoughts about this. It's been a concern for me for a very long time that even in my private practice, I saw a number of physicians from outside the region and in the region who had been involved with the disciplinary board. And as I worked with them, their great stress and the way they experienced being under investigation was very difficult for them and for their families, it turned out. They viewed the investigative process as punishment, and the requirement to go to treatment as punishment. The treatment was very good that they received, and it was very helpful for many of them, but the getting there was hard. And they felt that they were being punished rather than viewing the whole thing as a matter of professional development, in the effort of the board to get them from where they were to where they needed to be in the necessary time. And so I think it would be very helpful if they had that access where they could volunteer to seek supportive mental health therapy. Not necessarily, I think, just by a psychiatrist, but by a mental health professional. There are some very good, very skilled people around the state, and all of them are not psychiatrists. But it's also a time when they're having to pay for attorneys many times, and their income source is limited because of various things that they've done. And so it would be helpful if this were provided for them to participate in voluntarily, not to interfere with their treatment with the PHP, but something aside from that, outside of it. I think that not being able to pay for it would make them more likely to volunteer and step up to do it. Also, I think Dr. Collada could present it to them very well as something outside of the investigatory process, so that investigations at the board would not have information about that treatment, and the therapists who worked with them would not be reporting the outcome back to the board and things that were addressed.
Thank you, Dr. Hart. Dr. O'Neill?
Yeah, like Rita said, this would be like, we're thinking 2 tracks, and with LSMS taking one of the tracks and taking ownership of the track, where they're going to send out to all their members some screening tools, and with also some options for them to do some virtual group work if their screening tools are concerning, the burnout tools, depression tools, things that you can, they're simple tools that are available online. I gave Van access to a bunch of those. The board component will be insulated from investigations, and we'll have no requirement that they participate. So it's an offer with a letter from us saying, we know this is a very stressful time. We're concerned about the impact of this on our licensees, and we're gonna start this with MDDOs, and then see how much resources it takes, and then possibly expand it to others if other groups, if we're not overwhelmed. I don't think we're going to be overwhelmed. Also, there has to be a fairly significant wall between what they do in those and what they do in with the board, and also investigations. So nothing they say in those meetings will come back to us, and they have to know that that's going to be the case. So anyway, that's at least the initial plan, and I think we need to be real open-ended about it. This is not definitive. I mean, we can change it as it goes along. Anyway, that's the short-term plan. Van, anything else?
Dr. Valentine has her hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, I just want to make a comment. This is a working idea that we wanted to bring to the board. That, you know, obviously it's going to need some formalization and some structure to it. But I'm going to go ahead with that comment. I'm going to open the floor, and Dr. Valentine, you have the floor.
Well, first I want to thank y'all for physician burnout is another thing. We just talked about it earlier. It's prevalent really across the country. And just to add to what you're working on, I know that Federation of State Medical Boards in their 5-year strategic plan, they're looking to also provide tools that can help with physician burnout. So that may just be another level of help that we may be able to offer physicians, along with what you've been working on with the support that you mentioned already. So just letting you know that they have the Federation, that we can also get some tools and help from them, because really we want people wherever they feel comfortable to go and get help. And some of them may feel comfortable with things that we specifically provide, or they may just have an option. It's a good thing.
Thank you, Dr. Valentine. Any other comments from Dr. Johnson? I know you, if he's available. I know he's in 2 rooms.
He had to step out for a moment.
Okay. Any hands up? Alan, any hands up?
No, sir.
No? Okay. Well, what I'd like to do is to formally present to the board, hopefully next month, a working plan. As you heard, it would be something that the board would actually pay for. This would be for folks that were under investigation, and it would be a resource to them that would be basically completely separated from the board or any action that may be upon them, and so that they had confidence, and we can hopefully instill confidence in them that this was very confidential. It would not be associated with the Physicians Health Program. It would be totally independent. And I think we can formally get something to the board, hopefully by the next meeting. I think we have it. We're going to just have to work out the budget and et cetera, and kind of present it to you, if that's okay. We don't have a. Go ahead.
Dr. Clark, quick question. This would be something that is available even if they're not in the investigative process. This would be something that'd be available to all physicians, I'm thinking? Like
I think
whether
we're
just if they're feeling burnt out or the
Well, I was going to let Dr. Neal address it probably better than I can, but I think we're looking at two tracks. We're looking at physician burnout and et cetera. And I think we're maybe working more with the LSMS on that, but the board, of course, can do that as well. But we also look into the other track of physicians who are actually, because the biggest issue for us has been we're under investigation and the stressors that puts upon them and having resources for them. So I think we have to address both issues. And so, but I think that's kind of where we're looking at right now.
It might be good if we had something that it could be optional as well as for members that may only interface with the board or look for that assistance, just to cast a net where they could receive that therapy that's completely confidential as well here, but just offering that up, that'd be great.
No, I think that's why we wanted to bring it to the board. We have a lot of bright folks on this board, and just to offer ideas. We didn't come with a hard, fast plan. We came with something that I think we all kind of agreed on in our little group meeting to bring to the board as kind of a nidus to begin some discussion on how we go forward. And if the board seems like we're moving in the right direction, we'll just keep headed that way.
Horton has her hand raised, Mr. President.
Yeah, Dr. Horton.
Yes, I wanted to mention, it's my understanding that that one of the things that would be helpful about this separate supportive therapy group process for those under investigation is that they can discuss with others who have been there and are in the midst of it, what that's like, which is not the experience of all physicians who are worn out there and experiencing burnout, who might also need care separately. So LSMS is hopefully going to be addressing that more. And the other thing, I don't know whether you're aware of, it's my understanding that for physicians who have professional liability insurance with LAMICO, that LAMICO also provides a therapy source that's paid for by them, not paid for by the licensees.
Well, getting back to Dr. Valentine's point, and to you as well, Dr. Horton, I think the physician burnout issue is just a huge issue that really we need to incorporate not just LSMS, but other entities as well. I mean, and I've spoken to Mr. Williams, and I forget that I need to ask the public for comments now that I think about it. But I think it's something that really it's going to take more than just one entity to really make a dent in this problem. We're going to get the hospital association involved. We need to get LAMICO involved. We need to be involved in all the component medical societies involved, not just LSMS, and come maybe have some meetings to how best to address this and work together. So that's a huge issue. But for us, I think we can initially start focusing on folks who are under investigation and having some type of a support or safety net for them if we can help them at all. I think that's where we can get started on our end. Okay.
Dr. O'Neill has his hand up.
Dr. O'Neill.
Yeah, Rob, you actually mentioned what I was going to talk about, which is when we talked to LSMS, we talked about involving the hospital groups and other larger groups. This is a structural issue that's going on, not just here, but everywhere in the country right now. So this is a larger piece. The more focused piece is the one that we're probably going to pay for most of it. Van and Rita and Rob and I talked about that. We'll offer this to the people that are under investigation. investigation is trying to decrease, trying to have some effects on the negative outcomes that we see, and maybe have them feel more connected with us, like we're not then less adversarial. But anyway, that's kind of the thinking. And also, there's data to suggest that people that are under investigation are very high rates of divorce, alcohol and drug abuse made worse, suicide. So I think it's a good idea. So.
Dr. Johnson, I just saw you joined in. Would you like to comment? We're talking about some type of physician health support, mental health support, and for physicians under investigation.
Yeah, I'm just happy to know that. The president had talked to me about that. And of course, this is something that going back into Dr. Valentine's presidency a couple of years ago, we had wanted to have some more support for our physicians, or to be in the obvious, in this inevitable situation that we find ourselves in the investigative division with our practitioners and licensees. It just seems appropriate that we should do everything that we can. And I know Rod's talked to both Rita and Dr. O'Neill about ideas within, shall we say, the rules as to any sort of liability that we or in any way would have in trying to aid and abet families that are involved in the investigative process. Not to mention our folks in the investigative division that are also impacted by this when they're asked to, shall we say, put themselves into situations of investigation of individuals and their families. So I'm very happy about this. I know that it became much more difficult than we originally thought it would be. And I really appreciate Dr. Valentine and the president for looking into this over the last year or so and trying to come to some conclusion, along with Dr. Collada, as to maybe coming to some conclusion as to how we could be helpful. So thank you very much. That's my comments. We did tell the legislature that we would pursue this avenue of support, and I know they have appreciated our efforts in trying to have this happen. I did tell several of them that this was still a work in progress. So thank you very much for the efforts.
Well, thank you. Thank everyone. Really appreciate it. Yes.
We do have a public comment from Jeff Williams at LSMS.
Yeah, I was going to ask for public comment after
I'll
this.
read it to you if you like.
Okay.
From Mr. Williams today, they report.
Closer to the mic, Van, please.
They are reporting that they are still weighing in on the various options available to them and others, and they will work closely with all of the stakeholders to effect this.
Thank you, Jeff. I know we're kind of out in front of this, and I appreciate the LSMS's support and all the component society's support in this efforts. We're all on the same page, I'm sure.
When they're under this sort of duress.
Dr. Van, I think we're going to let you finish your report if you'd like to.
Okay. Well, of course, we had we celebrated employee appreciation. We appreciate all the hard work that our employees do. And we gave them a week of appreciation with a donut day, a snowball day, a free agency lunch, along with the daily prize drawing and an early dismissal day. So we really want to say to you all that we appreciate them publicly and all the work that they do. And while nobody's perfect, they're doing a good job, and we want to constantly strive to approach affection. We know we will never obtain it. I want to continue to say that we have had no problems with storms to date. Our leadership team meets whenever needed to address weather threats and safety of our employees. And at the suggestion of Dr. Cresswell, we've instituted a new text-based notification system to advise all employees of weather-related agency matters. And also, we continue to post this information of this nature on the agency's website and continue to operate the phone-in information line for our employees where they can dial up and find out the status of closures or openings relative to weather. If the board members would like to be part of that, please let me know and we'll add your cell phone number to that, and you can get those when we send them out. But you may, I didn't want to include you unless you specifically asked for, because you may get more than you want out of that situation. Additionally, I recognize we send this time, we actually shortened it down to about 550 pages of our agenda. But we generally send out anywhere from 500 to 800 pages. It takes quite a while to review all of this information. And presently, we only pay 1 day to you all for the work. I would like to ask the board to approve that we raise that to 3 days. We can pay you a total of 3 different days or 3 days of reading in preparation for the meeting. We're getting the meeting agendas out early enough that I think that's reasonable. And if you will approve that, we will begin that process with the next board meeting and reading. And I ask you to approve that right now, if you could.
Okay, we haven't really had much discussion on this, Van, but if there's a motion on the floor, I'll accept the motion. If they'd like to defer this to the next meeting after, but is there a motion to increase the payment from 1 day to 3 days for the board members?
Weather, still move. Okay.
Dr. Weather has moved on that. Second? Do you have a second on that?
Ford, second.
Ms. Ford is second. Discussion?
Dr. Taylor has his hand raised, Mr. President.
Dr. Taylor.
I was wondering what some of the background on how the determination was made that this was something that was needed. I think I'm okay either way. I was a little bit more. I'd like to know a little bit more about how we got to this proposal, and also I'm a little bit wary of voting myself a raise at any time. So I'd like a really good reason to do that.
Basically, I think you all spend much more time. It's hard to say you could read. Let me say this to you. I don't think anybody realizes that it's hard to read an 800-page novel in 1 day. And sometimes you get 600 or 800 pages worth of reading to do in 1 day. I think it's not appropriate. I think people tend to skim over and not read things. Some of you are more attentive than others. I think this is reasonable to say it can take 3 days to read an 800-page novel. And I think this is what we're asking you to do because it's important that you see and read all of this. Many companies and other institutions pay for the days that you work. And I know that many of you read these on several days, and I think you should be paid for it.
And again, this is coming from our executive director. I don't think this was initiated by any board member or any board member request. This is purely what he feels that the board should be, compensated for their work. So it's up to the board to decide if they want to move on this or not. And we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
Dr. Horton and Dr. Yu have their hands up.
Dr. Yu.
Yes, well, since I'm the newest member of the board, I want to tell you, and it took a lot of time to prepare and read the agenda. As a matter of fact, I thought, oh my God, I don't think I'll be able to do this. So I in some way, I mean, I don't know if the other members, because you've been longer, you have a certain way of doing it. For a new member, I go through every page, and it really takes more than 2 days to read everything. And for this meeting, since we are sort of combining 2 meetings, actually it took longer than that. So maybe I should learn a technique to do this a little bit faster, but in order to prepare well and read all the pages, it does take a lot of time. I hate to say this, but because I understand you only have 2 days, you're allotted only 2 days, I'm okay. But from my perspective as a new member, I do want to say that it does take a lot of time.
Thank you. Thank you, Doctor. Dr. Harden?
Actually, it's Dr. Johnson. I
Okay.
appreciate the executive director's understanding for the amount of time that goes into this position that all of us are honored to hold. I surely agree with Dr. Yu. I mean, within the, it requires a lot more than I expected it to when I came on the board as well. I think I'm a little better at it. I think over time of deciphering, but it does just take some time to read through everything and be prepared as best we can. My understanding, Vince, is it that now that we get paid for 1 day or 2 days, mine all goes to LSU anyway. So how does that work? I know. Can't hear you. Vincent, can't hear you.
I don't know what's so. To my knowledge, Dr. Johnson, we get 1 day. Is all.
So we would be going from 1 to 3 days in one fell
Is that?
swoop.
I think that's his proposal, and I think
that's a little bit, particularly with Dr. Thomas and Denise looking into the some of the situations with the current budget. Could we look into this, perhaps give some thought to this month and before the next meeting, and because it's a little hard to decide that all at one fell swoop. And I know some of us would have like Dr. Taylor said, be reticent to, at this point in time, with all the problems in the nation with this COVID and whatnot, to allow any sort of raise of any sort. So I would advise maybe some reflection upon this after further discussion for a month. But I don't know the wisdom of that either, but that's just my thought just right off the top.
Dr. Johnson, that was kind of my first impression too, is that it would be probably best that we take the time to think about this. And again, it's always uncomfortable, again, what Dr. Taylor said, moving for our own benefit. So I would make a recommendation that we bring this back, Dr. Collada, to the meeting next month, and let's talk about this again. Let's revisit to see if we're going to go 3 days, or maybe incrementally 1 more day. Maybe start with 2 days instead of 3. Incrementalism may be the best way to go, but we can talk about that next month if the board would be agreeable. Is there any dissension on that? Hearing none, I think, okay, so we'll defer this vote until next month. All right, Dr. Collada, what else do you have?
CME issue, as you know, we waived all of the CMEs for the requirements of 2020.
Difficult hearing you, Dr. Collada.
Can you hear me now? I'm sorry, I apologize. Let me see if I can change mics. Hold on 1 second. I'm going to see if I'm changing mics.
Because we're going to take a little bit of a break after you finish. We're going to take a 10-minute break after Dr. Collada finishes his report.
Like I can't change mics. Can you hear me now?
Sounds better.
All right. Let me say to you that we have waived the 2020 requirements. We will not, for CMEs, we will not audit anybody. We will not require anybody. However, as we had moved into 2021 in the future, not too far from now, we had planned to be using CE Broker with a rolling 12 months prior to renewal date and not a calendar year. In order to bring that into effect without penalizing anybody who didn't get CMEs in 2020, I am proposing that for January, you only have to have 2 CMEs, for February 4, for March 6, for April 8, and move up add 2 every month until we get to 20, which will be in November, October, and some of our licensees only need 10, but whenever they get to 10, they would have to do that. And that way we have a rolling 12 months in advance for all licensees. And we have the CE Broker operational for 2021, as we were told to do so in the past.
Van, I didn't follow that.
Okay.
To be honest to you. I mean,
right,
I'm a simple mind. Make it simple for me.
Okay. Right now, if you renew, you have to have 20 hours of CME.
Okay.
If you're a January birthday, you have to renew in January.
Correct.
You had no 2020 requirements for CME. So we would not be able to give you a license. But that was because we suspended CME requirements. So what I am proposing is if you have a January birthday, you only need 2 hours of CME. If you have a February birthday, you have 4. And we add those 2 hours every month incrementally until we get to October when it would be 20. So that if you have a November birthday, you've had 10 months to get 20. A December, you have 11 months.
And you're going to communicate that to the,
Yes, we would communicate this. We would send email blasts with explanations. We would send diagrams. We would publish it on the website. It would go to all of our licensees. Some licensees don't need 20, they only need 10, like our respiratory therapist only need 10. But nonetheless, we would be integrating CE Broker as we were told, and we would be making allowance for the fact that 2020 was a year with CME was so difficult to get.
could we just start collecting for 2020 and make it a requirement for 2021?
That's what we're doing.
Okay.
That is
All right.
exactly what we're doing. We
All right.
we're not going to audit or collect for 2021, but if you had
I
50
mean-
hours of CMEs and your January birthday, you'll be fine.
Okay. I misspoke. I meant 2022. Could we do that?
You'll be delaying a whole nother year.
Okay. All right. All right.
I'm
Well,
happy to do
let's
whatever the
let the
board
board,
wants me to
let's,
do.
well, let's make, is there a motion on this and we can have some discussion on it? I don't want to be speaking by myself here. Is there a motion on Dr. Collada's plan?
Dr. Valentine has her hand up.
Dr. Valentine? Dr. Valentine?
I'm sorry, I was on mute. I was thinking about what you mentioned as far as, I think it's absolutely important that our physicians always do the CME and are always on top of that. But I guess I'm wondering if they didn't specifically have the 2 hours for their birthday. I guess I'm thinking of how logistically how that would work, and you probably have it all figured out. But just as far as the physicians sharing that information, since it wouldn't have been collected by CE Broker, because you're saying you're going to start CE Broker in 2021.
Broker is now actually operational. If we want to use it, anybody can use it. I actually have submitted some. So I know it's working, but what we're going to say is all you have to do is submit 2 hours of continuing education to CE Broker for your January birthday renewals. If you are a February birthday renewal, you submit 4 hours. And every month, I'm a March renewal, I would have to submit 6 hours.
So you'll communicate to all these licensees. You're going to have to send all that information out so they'll be clear on all this.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
We
Well,
will do
all
it in a
right.
series of email blasts. We'll start blasting them every 2 weeks to make sure they understand and answer questions.
If not, we're going to have a lot of mad people.
Well, I don't think you're going to have a lot of mad people if they read their email.
Okay. All
I
right.
can't promise what happens to the ones that don't read their email.
I think the only thing I foresee is someone saying, well, our meeting for my society is later in the year and I get all my hours there, and so I would just be prepared for that because I could see that happening.
Okay, well, let's take your scenario, Dr. Valentine. Let's say your annual meeting is in August, okay? And you're a August birthday, okay? You have to the 31st, you can submit that August meeting for your renewal. If you're a September birthday, you can submit it. But let's say your meeting is in August, but your birthday renews in March, like mine. You would only need 6 hours and not all of those 20 hours. So you could get 6, I mean, I already got my hours for 2020. I took them, but some people didn't. So all I would need is 6 hours in March, 8 hours in April. So again, I think it tells everybody you can get these online, you can do whatever you want. But again, we're incrementally bringing everybody up to a rolling 12 months, and it's easier for us to take that and move it along. And again, we can get this system rolling.
As president, as long as we made sure that it was a clear communication to our licensees I would be okay with it. I would just lend my support.
We have 2 participants with raised hands. Alan, who's got their hands raised?
It's Dr. Yu and Dr. Sport and Miss Sport.
Go ahead, Dr. Yu.
I just want to know, what was the reason for the suspension, suspended CME? Was it because of COVID-19?
Ma'am, that was the reason we decided that in March.
Okay, all right. No, that's all I wanted to know. That's fine.
Thank you, Dr. Yu. And who was the next board member? Miss Sport. I'm sorry, Kim.
It's okay. I'm wondering why CME compliance is tied to the birthday.
That is your renewal day. And that's when you tell us either you got those in the calendar year 2020, but as we move on to CE Broker, where it's easier for us to make sure that you got the 20 hours, we're tying that to our renewal system so that if you say, if you didn't get the 20 hours, you'll be notified of it. If you don't get the 20 hours, you will not be allowed to renew. The plan was, if you don't get your CMEs, you don't renew, and that assures 100% compliance instead of auditing every year, finding out people that have issues, and then we find out almost a year and a half later that they don't respond to 5 or 6 letters, and then we have to administratively suspend their license, report it to the National Practitioner Data Bank, and then that adversely affects their employment and things like that. So we're trying to make this as easy as we can and protect them in a way that gets them their CMEs and keeps us with 100% compliance as opposed to less than 2%.
Okay.
And Dr. Miss Sport, just for a little further clarification, because all their expiration dates are tied to their birth month.
I understand that. I just know that in the bar association, we all must renew on a certain date, which usually in July, and we all have to have our CMEs completed by the end of the year. So it's a 12-month process to get your CMEs, and it's just done separately so that you don't have all these birthday issues. We don't do anything by our birthday in as far as licensure or continuing legal education. Seems like we're making this very complicated.
I don't think we're making it complicated if you understand that 2021 will be the correction for 2020 and the initiation of the 12 months before your birthday. Now, if the board wants to change all its renewals to the beginning of the year, the middle
No.
I can do that.
No. Let's not go down that road.
Birthday.
No. I think we answered the question. We had a simple question. Ms. Sport, the question has been answered. And I think what we'll do, I would suggest we go ahead and Van has a plan. I support our executive director's plan, but I think we keep a close eye on this, Van. And if looks like we're having some problems, communicate that to me. And of course, if we need to communicate that to the board, we will too before the meeting. Or if we have a meeting come up, we'll bring it to give some grace to some of these physicians who may get caught up in this. We don't want people who are good physicians to be caught up in this, transition. Even though we do send out emails, not everybody looks at emails all the time. So we do the best we can to communicate this, and let's just see how it goes. But let's give grace to those who may need it. Is that okay? How's that sound?
With me, and Ms. Wilton had her hand raised, and Dr. Valentine had her hand raised after Ms. Wilton.
Yeah.
Okay, Dr. Valentine.
Yes, I absolutely agree with what the president said, and I think that the plan that the executive director has, and if we start to see that we're having issues with our licensees getting the information submitted, we know that we've already collected way more than 20 hours this year just with all the work that we've done, but if there are any hiccups, that we do give that grace. But I support the plan. I think we have a way that we can at least try to roll this out. And if we run into hiccups like our president said, then we allow some grace until it's fully up and running. But I support it.
Okay, so Dr. Valentine, I will take that as a motion. Do I have a
Yes,
second?
that's the motion.
You, sec,
Dr. Yu, second. Any more discussion? I think there was a hand up I missed somewhere. Dr. Allen, was there somebody else wanting
I
to
didn't
speak?
see it, but Dr.
Miss Wilton, wasn't it?
Wilton, yeah.
I'm sorry,
It
Miss
was me,
Wilton.
but it was me. I was just going to provide some information, but y'all are rolling. You don't need it.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 All in dissension, say no. Hearing none, motion passes. Dr. Collada, are you almost done?
Show you all of the temporary permits as of 9/20. These are the people that have come in on various temporary permits to work, to assist the people in our state. Many of them are, as you see, telemedicine. And I think that this is helpful to our patient population and our citizens. Well, remember that all of these will disappear the day that the governor ends the Louisiana Healthcare Emergency Declaration. This is not related to, in case you get a question about phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. It's at the end of the emergency declaration. So I have nothing else to report at this time.
Before we take a little 10-minute break, thank you, Dr. Collada. It was a very, very busy report. Appreciate your hard work. Are there any comments from the public?
Not at this time.
Okay, we'll take a 10-minute break and we'll come back at let's about 10:47, 10:48.
Comes time for the trial, they're going to have to see me.
They can't see you now.
No. See, this is me up here. See what it says this.
Judge Bagneris, your mic is still on and it is recording.
Yes, I'm trying to get my picture.
I just wanted you to know.
Thank you. Thank you.
No problem.
Appreciate it. Oh, so I can do this.
Van, do you want to speak to me?
No, I just wanted to, time was getting up close, so I wanted to make sure you were unmuted.
Okay.
We had some conversation going on and Mary called it to my attention, so I muted everybody's mic. And now we're getting close to the time to resume, so I unmuted your mic and people can unmute them as they need them.
Okay.
And the next item of the agenda is on the screen.
That's going to be advisory committee meeting updates.
No, well, yeah, well, basically, yes, that's going to be advisory committee meeting updates, which I actually have already addressed.
Okay, do you want to move, you just want to move past that then?
Yeah, and just go to general administrative matters, and the first request is on the screen, the cultural competence.
Okay. All right. And that's where we'll start. In about 3 minutes, 3 to 4 minutes. I was very happy about the mental health issue. I think that we can work on that. It's going to be good.
It's being recorded, Rod.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, well, I'm still very happy about that.
I agree, and I'm very happy as well, but I just wanted to advise you, we're still being recorded.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Hey, Dr. Van,
Sir. Yeah, Alan?
were you looking for me?
No, I took care of it. I just had muted everybody.
Okay.
And now we're back, and then people can start adding themselves back in as we move on, because I tried to, there was some conversation going on while we were still recording.
Yeah.
Your mic, I don't want to let you know, Van, I don't know what you did to your mic, but you sound a lot better.
I fixed it.
I don't know.
I apologize.
Okay, well, it's 1 minute and we'll see who's back. I don't know if you would be nice. Is there a way for Alan for you to track when folks are on?
No, I mean, because they're just connected, and I mean, unless they raise their hands when they come back, we could make that a requirement.
Would that be an easier way than calling the roll? Would you say, look, if you raise your hands, and then I'd see if I had a quorum that way?
Especially for board members, yeah, if you want to.
Maybe we could try that.
Under Robert's Rules of Order, you have a quorum once it's established until there is a call for quorum count.
But I understand, but I mean, I'd like to have everybody find out. Maybe I need to restate. I'd like to see at least have a majority of the members back. All righty.
Even though Robert's Rules of Order provided you to continue.
I understand. Well, it is now 10:58 and we will continue with the meeting. Dr. Collada, you have the floor under general administrative matters.
Yes, sir. We received a request from the public about being able to identify the race and ethnicity of physicians. This particular patient wanted to be able to determine the race and ethnicity of the physicians. I explained to her that we do not routinely collect that data. The board would have to instruct us to do so. We would be happy to implement this if the board directs us to do so. But this patient wants to be able to find a certain race and ethnicity of doctors for herself. And she views that as an issue of cultural competence because she feels that only the doctor of her race and ethnicity would be able to identify with her issues. And so I present that to the board for discussion and we can implement this. I will tell you that we cannot promise the data to be accurate until because we renew on a birthday situation, the month birthday, it would take 12 full months from now to get 100% compliance, because what we would have to do is make the race question mandatory for response so they can continue their licensing. And that way we would have a very accurate ability to answer this patient's questions. It's for your board decision to tell me what to do.
Thank you, Dr. Collada. Do we have any board members who'd like to discuss this matter?
Dr. Valentine has her hand up.
Dr. Valentine? Unmute Dr. Valentine, please, if she's muted.
Let me see if I can find her and unmute her.
She's here.
Can you hear me?
We got you.
Okay, thank you. I think that if an individual is interested in finding a particular provider for cultural competency, that's something that they could discuss with their insurance carrier or provider as far as who's even on their plan, associated with their plan. I think to make it a requirement that we collect this information on our members is questionable. If someone wants this information because they're worried about their medical care, then they can always reach out to their insurance provider, find out who's on their who's a provider with that particular plan, and then they can have options that they can make based on that. But I think that it's questionable to make it a requirement to collect race data on individuals. That's what I've offered for that. If they, cultural competency, that's something that can be addressed outside of the Board of Medicine.
I would support you on that, Dr. Valentine. Any other comments from the board?
Hand up.
Dr. Taylor?
Yes, I highly agree with Dr. Valentine. This is an area, there's a lot of downside and there's no upside here. And if a physician wants to advertise to a bigger community, they are already free to do that. And we should encourage them to do that. But in no way should we be perceived in any way as sorting out our licensees on any of those characterizations of race or gender or anything like that. Like I said, there is no upside here. There is only downside, and I think we should stay away from it.
Is there a motion so that when we respond to this lady, I can say that the board had a motion and that was voted on and we decided not to do it? I just at this time of the world, I want to make sure we follow our procedures exactly.
Sure. No, I think that what I would offer from what I said earlier is that we, if they're interested in a particular provider, that they could reach out to find out who is even credentialed and able to provide care with their insurance carrier.
So the answer would be there should be a motion to deny this request and suggest that they.
They seek out other avenues.
Right, okay.
I think that if I'm simplifying it, but I think that's what, so do we have a second?
Got Dr. Johnson or Dr. Horton had their hands up.
Oh, okay. Is that for a second? I need a second. Okay, well,
Second.
so Dr.
Second
Hughes,
you.
second. Okay, now we can have discussion. Dr. Johnson and Dr. Horton. Dr. Horton and Dr. Johnson. Are they muted, Alan?
Yes, they are.
They probably, yeah, they got their self muted. Let me.
Dr. Horton, Dr. Johnson, you need to unmute yourself.
Well, they're not even back in.
Okay, now can you hear me?
There they come.
Yes, ma'am. Dr. Horton.
Okay, I'm sorry, the room was muted. Okay, so as the Hispanic Apache woman, I need to tell you that I can understand why people would be curious about knowing our race and ethnicity and that sort of thing. Some people want to know that I can speak Spanish before they come see me, but I don't think it's appropriate for that information to be collected and disseminated in this manner. If somebody needs a Spanish-speaking physician and, you know, I'm on their insurance list or somebody else is, they can call the office and say, does that person speak Spanish? I don't think we need to collect it in this manner. I'm against it.
Thank you, Dr. Horton. Any other comments?
Dr. Taylor has his hand up.
Dr. Taylor?
You're muted, Dr. Taylor.
Yeah, I just have my hand up to second or move the vote as needed.
I'm sorry.
Thank you, Dr. Taylor. Any other comments? Alan, any hands up?
No, sir.
All right, all in favor of approving the motion to deny? Say aye.
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 All in favor against? Hearing none, motion passes. Dr. Collada, next, please. Before I move on, Dr. Collada, I'd like to ask Alan if there's any public comment.
Not at this time. No, sir.
Okay, continue, Dr. Collada.
Okay. The next one is a request for prescribing in school-based health centers. I'm a little bit fuzzy on what they really want to do, but the best way I can interpret it is that school-based health centers want to have telemedicine services to the students in the 60 schools and 25 parishes throughout the state, and then prescribe medications for them. This would allow, as they say, a psychiatrist or APRN that holds Louisiana licensure, DEA, and panel to credential within a community health organization, the ability to e-prescribe controlled substances for patients at a school-based clinic. And I present this to you for your consideration, to e-prescribe controlled substances for patients in school-based clinics. I need to have the pleasure of the board in responding to this letter.
I can tell you as president, I would be against this ban. It just goes, my gut and I trust it. Just doesn't. I wouldn't support this as president. But if there's someone who'd like to make a motion on this, either to deny or accept, I'd entertain discussion.
Dr. Thomas has her hand raised.
Dr. Thomas.
And then Dr. O'Neill.
Dr. Thomas.
Yes. Dr. Clark, I completely agree with you. I'm assuming that that they're meaning medications for ADHD and things like that. So I think that needs to take place in the presence of a parent. And I'm assuming that if they're being prescribed these medications at school, that wouldn't be the case. I'm not sure. Maybe if we could get some more information about the logistics of all of this and whether or not the parent would be present, or if they can, I'm not really sure. But as it stands, I don't know if we need more information before we make a decision on this. Does that sound fair?
I think that's very appropriate. It's really questionable what they're asking for, to be honest to you.
Mhm.
I would support that. You could ask them for more information, come back with more specifics on what they're asking for the board for.
You guys, this is done by Genoa. It's a huge telemedicine company. Has activity in 45, 50 states. If they're sending this to you, if we don't, they're going to go to legislation. But I can tell you how these guys work. And I will tell you, Terry, that I'm actually totally opposed to this at this point. But Terry, the protection with the stimulants and stuff like that is you can't do those using telemed. You have to have a face-to-face visit first. So that's going to kick in when they pull the emergency declaration. So it's less of an issue. And most of these school-based clinics, we do a couple currently that we don't do telemed to, but we actually do in person, and the parents are usually asked to come. Now, the problem is the majority of the parents don't make those visits, which is sad. But anyway, it's also economics and stuff like that. Anyway, so I feel fairly strongly opposed to this, just knowing this company, but I didn't say that.
Okay. Any other comments?
They're probably listening right now.
Dr. Weather has his hand up.
Dr. Weather.
All right, Mr. President, I trust your gut, frankly. And additionally, I think we really have to look further into this. It's like a can of worms. In spite of who the company or what the company is, I think we really need to scrutinize this a bit more. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. So is there a motion to deny this request? And if they want to come back with further information, they can.
Motion to deny, support.
Moved and seconded. Any other discussion? Dr. Weather seconded. Any other discussion?
No, sir.
Hearing none. All in favor to deny, say yes.
Yes.
Or aye.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, and any dissension, say no. Hearing no dissension, this request is denied. Okay, Dr. Collada.
Well, thank you very much, members. Appreciate these.
It's LSMS request is next, I believe.
And I'm scrolling down. You have to forgive me.
That's okay. Page on my, it's agenda page 77. It's probably like 78, 79 page.
Okay. Again, this is all documentation from the telemedicine people and their interpretation of the rules. We supply all of that and go through it, and I apologize for not getting there fast enough.
There it is.
The request from the LSMS, and this certainly is a very reasonable issue. At this time, there are pharmacies and doctors who do not have internet access, are seeing their patients under primitive times because of the issues of electricity failures, water failures, closures of clinics and hospitals, and other issues. And they are requesting that we waive any requirement at this time to check with the PMP during such time as they are unable to comply. Now, we can waive our enforcement, but we would have to reply to them that the Board of Pharmacy would have to waive their decision as well. But I think that's the only thing we can do, and we can copy the Board of Pharmacy on this letter if you like.
So you just need us to basically approve today in a letter that you will be sending. Do we need to see this letter? It just basically simply stated what you're stating?
If I will make sure it states what you want me to state, and I'll send the letter. If you want to approve it, I can make it come back next month. But
I think what you said was pretty good, unless the board have any board members want to chime in on that.
Dr. Valentine has her hand up.
Dr. Valentine.
I
She
want to
mute.
move that we move forward with sending this letter and CCing the Board of Pharmacy, as Dr. Collada suggested. I think the sooner we can do this, the better, especially to alleviate stress on our physicians with everything else they're dealing with. So I think this was really a great call out, and I fully support it.
Thank you, Dr. Valentine. Do we have a second on her motion?
Dr. Yu has her hand up.
Second.
Dr. Yu? Okay, second, Ms. Sport. Dr. Yu? Can we, Dr. Yu muted?
She's not muted.
Oh, I didn't hear you. So
I'm sorry.
I agree. Yeah, I agree with Dr. Valentine's point. The only thing I have a question on, should we specify how long this is going to be?
That's a good point.
We can specify that it's the term of the Louisiana healthcare emergency.
What does that mean?
Well, it means until the governor says the emergency is over.
Oh,
In that area, the hurricane,
Well, it would be
because we got a couple emergencies going on, unfortunately, in our state.
You make the decision and I'll make sure with the letter.
No, I think what Dr. Yu is a good point. I mean, when do we say this should be over? At the end of the year? Or what should it be based on? I mean, I think that it was declared an emergency. The hurricane was declared an emergency, and I know that must be an expiration on that at some point.
The governor will declare that when he's ready, and we can tie that. I'm happy to tie that to the declared emergency for hurricane-related issues.
I think that's probably what I would suggest.
And you got to remember that this, Hurricane Laura went all the way up to Shreveport with hurricane-related winds. And I think it's important that we acknowledge that it's going to be a lot of the western side of the state.
Okay, well, I would incorporate that into your letter. Maybe you can make it more general than saying the parishes that were affected or declared emergencies by Hurricane Laura. Maybe that would be the more appropriate way to do it.
Dr. Johnson has his hand up.
Dr. Johnson?
Yeah, Dr. Clark, let me make sure that I understand this. Nobody is asking for anything other than just not to have to check the PMP at this moment in time during this 3-month period or whatever period it is. They still believe that they would be responsible for each and every prescription written during this time until the time that they check the PMP the next time.
Correct.
Is that correct?
I think that's correct, but I think the question from Dr. Yu is how long do we want to allow this exemption?
Right. That's a separate situation.
Right.
They're still responsible for each and every prescription. It will be there when they do check it for them to act upon.
They should. I agree.
Mary has her hand up.
Yes.
I was just going to suggest that going with Dr. Collada's recommendation about tying it to the governor, we could tie it to the governor and say, or within 3 months, that the board will look back to see how the progress is happening on the internet in that area, in those parishes, and if there's been enough improvement to reinstate the norm.
I think that's a friendly amendment from Dr. Yu would agree to make that amendment. That we incorporate that into Dr. Valentine's motion. I don't think she would have issue with that. I hope. And
no, I don't. I agree with Mary.
Okay. Dr. Valentine, you're okay with adding that friendly amendment?
Sure, absolutely.
All right. So any other discussion? Hearing none. Well, let's vote on the LSMS's request on the Hurricane Laura to defer the PMP. So all in favor, say aye.
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 All against, say nay or no. Hearing none, motion passes. Okay, Dr. Collada, congratulations. There, we got that. I think you're finished.
I am.
We have some. We've already had the financial report. Some future meeting dates. won't you pull those up for us on the screen? If you can, Van.
Let me get to it right now.
I would guess that's probably on page 89.
That's all right there. Thank you.
That's the pages on the computer and the pages on my printout are off a little bit.
The proposed meeting dates for the remainder of this, let's see. This is December. We have December 14th and 15th. We have no plans for October and we have October 26th, no November meeting and a December meeting. If you want to change that, we can. And then you have your dates for 2021.
I was discussing with Van, the board, I was discussing with maybe considering having a November meeting. And so with COVID going on, I don't think we're going to be in New Orleans for December. And maybe what we could do is just give us off for December, have a late meeting in November, and then maybe have a mid-January type meeting. And, you know, then go back to a late meeting in February again. And we don't have to make this decision today. We got next month, we can talk about it, but I was thinking that maybe we should just give ourselves, take off December instead of November. But if we want to discuss it now or next month, I'd open it up now if you want to discuss it. If you want to talk about it next month, we can do that as well. Anyone like to have discussion on that? Changing some of this around? Any hands up, Alan, or?
No, sir, no hands.
Okay, well, why don't we do this? Let's just put this on the agenda for discussion for next month. Van, please.
Yes.
Potentially moving these things around. Okay. All right. Next is the combined regulatory report. And who's going to present that? Ms. Wilton or you, Van?
That really is Mary's going to do that. But
Or Mary, I'm sorry. Ms. Payton, you have the
That's
floor.
all right. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can.
All right. So with the assessment of costs, OLRC met in July and approved that. And we have actually finalized our fiscal impact statement and sent that off to the fiscal office. We're waiting on their approval of that. They may have some changes, but we shall see. With regard to board certification, I believe you guys had previously stated that y'all might want either more research into how this matter might be affected by antitrust arguments.
Well, I think what happened is I spoke to
take it
Mary,
off?
if I may have interrupted. I think the last meeting we said we wanted to take it out completely. Because what I've been told from the AG's office, this is basically expired. We'd have to go back and readdress this. So we couldn't even take action on it. We'd have to start from the beginning. So
I
I
believe
don't
you're
know.
correct about that. Can we just have a vote to take that off?
It may have a motion to remove this item from our agenda for the future because it's no longer an action item.
Horton, I move to remove it.
Dr. Horton, and do I have a second?
Second, Sport.
Okay, any discussion?
No hands up.
Have a hand up?
No, sir, no hands up.
All right, all in favor to remove this from the agenda, say aye. Aye. Any dissension, nay. Hearing no dissension, it is removed from the future. And if anyone wants to address this from the public, they can. We'll take a look at it. But for now, it's off the table. Okay.
Appreciate that. So for petitions for rulemaking, again, the OLRC has recently approved our rulemaking effort, and we have turned in our fiscal impact statement to the fiscal office. After they've approved that, we'll move forward with publishing. That is the same with the physician's IMG. Dr. Collada, could we scroll down a little more? Thank you. Podiatry and history and physicals, that is the same with that rule as well. When we pushed through a bunch of these, I want to say it was in June or so, we got them on the OLRC's agenda.
Perfect.
And they were approved in July, and I think some were delayed to September. However, they were all approved, and we've gotten our fiscal impact statements done on all of them. The next one, complaints and investigations, that's the same with that. And our temporary permits for retirees, we did that as well.
Okay. Any questions or comments for Ms. Payton?
We also did it for waiver of qualifications. And I believe there might be one more, Dr. Collada, on the next page. I can't tell which one that is, but we do have one that's coming up in, we had it published in the Louisiana Register. Unfortunately, the Register accidentally deleted our submission. They apologized for that, and they said it will be in the next Register, and they promised us. So we will hold a public hearing, and I believe Dr. Collada has arranged for that to take place, and will be submitting a transcript to the board with suggested responses for the board. And I believe that will take place probably in November. Does that sound about right?
Mary, I want you to take a minute. Yeah, I'm catching you, but I was just learned about a month ago, and I don't know, maybe other board members know this, but apparently the process that we had for public hearings was not potentially necessary to have a quorum of the board. And so when you kind of went through this pretty quickly, that y'all were going to be having a little public hearing, but that will be without the board present, correct?
That's correct. That's
And
correct.
so please, but I think you need to educate the board members on this change in policy, because this is a change in policy.
Okay. Well, it's another way of doing the public hearing that will allow. I'm sorry?
Go ahead. No, because you got to remember, we moved all of our meetings to the end of the month because of this, what we thought was process. And now we've learned that that was probably unnecessary. But go ahead, and I hate to interrupt. Go ahead, continue.
Okay. I was not aware that that was the reason everything was done at the end of the month. But what we have learned is basically that we need to supply a time and a place for members of the public to come and give their comments and to have an opportunity to express their concerns or their favor, whatever it is that they want to say about the proposed rule. And the law requires thereafter that that the board respond, but not directly to the person at the time. In fact, it's actually advised that that the board hold its response at the time, simply receive the comment, and then draft a response that will be presented to the legislature through their process that we have to go through after receiving the public comments. And we can do this by simply having, say, like Dr. Collada and myself have a publicly scheduled meeting through the Louisiana Register, have a court reporter there to detail each person's public comments and any materials they want to submit with that. And then we would put that together for the board, along with maybe some suggested responses. And the board could then consider all of that at the next meeting.
Well, thank you very much. So that's what we're going to be doing in the future.
Mr. President, that would then allow you to move those meetings further up in the month, because this was designed around the 35 days from the publishing in the Register, so that we have within the 35 days. If we're going to do it this way, and again, many
Gives
other
us some flexibility. I don't want to start changing the schedules too much, but we can discuss that at the next meeting, right?
Okay.
If we want to change some of these dates around to accommodate members. Okay. Thank you very much. The next is some potential rules. Future rulemaking, page 135.
Let me get there. I'm trying to get there right now. Okay. So the first one I'd like you to consider is, because we have the potential sometimes to need a pro tem DOI, I'd like to go ahead and mirror the language and process that we have for members of the board, to have pro tem members of the board, and add a section 9920 and 9703, the pro tem DOI. And this would be then standardizing the language and the rules and make it clear how it should happen for future reference, like we did for board members. And I ask your approval to do this.
Van, I understand this formalizes into rule. I remember we have this process now, so it's not formalized in a rule is the
No,
only
it is
difference?
not. It is not.
But we do
for
have a
board
process,
members,
but
it
it's not
is.
formalized.
For board members, it is in the rules. For the pro tem DOI, it is not in the rules. And my suggestion is we put it in the rules for future reference.
Thank you. Is there a motion for rulemaking effort on this pro tem DOI rulemaking effort?
So moved, O'Neill.
Dr. O'Neill has moved. Second.
Second, Thomas.
Who was that? I'm sorry, Dr. Thomas? I don't know. Dr.
Sport
Ms. Ford,
second.
I'm sorry. Okay, Ms. Ford. Any discussion?
No hands raised.
All right. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All against, say nay. Hearing no nays, motion passes. Let's go ahead, Dr. Collada. Is there any other discussion?
No, sir, I'm going to move down to, we are in an effort to, we have closed the building to public by and large. And what I'd like to do is in the rules, amend the rules for future as we move more and more electronically, so that documents that we need can be submitted to us in PDF form. For example, if somebody has to get us a citizenship paper or a permit to live and work in the United States, they can have a notarized copy sent to us initially by PDF with the formal document to follow and allow us to expedite processing. This will help speed up our price licensing efforts and prevent a lot of people coming to the office because we don't know how long the COVID crisis will last. And we're doing it now on a trial period. And this was suggested by Phil, and we have been operating with this. It's working fine. And I'd like to draft some rules to formalize this for the future.
Okay.
Okay,
So
I'm getting,
moved.
Mary has her hand up.
all right, go ahead.
I might just be missing it. Is this on the agenda?
Yes, it is.
Right, I that's what I'm saying is I think I'm just missing it. Is it just further down? This is just taken out of
It's on
order?
the screen in front of you.
I'm sorry. I had my screen up. I apologize for that.
Well,
Okay.
no,
I see
it's on the
97.
agenda. It's on the agenda, Mary.
Okay, I'm sorry. I just saw it under, oh, I see, proposed rules. I apologize. I thought that was part of the 9703. I didn't see that. Thank you.
I've had a question, Van, that why do we need a rule when we have this basically as a process? And what would be your response to that question?
I think so. If anybody challenges electronic documentation, we have it in our rules and it's been approved by the state.
Okay. All righty. So we've approved that. I guess before we go into executive session, I have Alan, are there any public requests or comments?
No, sir, not at this time.
Okay, at this point, I would entertain a motion for executive session.
I'll move Valentine.
Dr. Valentine has moved. Second.
Second, Thomas.
Dr. Thomas is second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Hearing none, we're in executive session.
All right, give me a few seconds, Dr. Clark.
No, we'll give you a few seconds. You got to cut everything off.